Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain. I'm Rachel. I just drank my coffee and so I put it away and was going to get some tea, just didn't do it. But wanted to dive straight into the next book of the moment, and it is actually going to be The Isle of Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson. Sorry, there was my light. So you will notice that it is still in its plastic. Well, Rachel, how did you read that? Because I had the audiobook. And so I didn't take the protective plastic off when I think, did I kickstart this one? I think I did. I think I either kickstarted it or I just paid for a secret project, but it is separate from the 4 other secret projects that were done during the lockdown, the shutdown. Well, now we're in a shutdown. That was more of like the epidemic, pandemic sort of time frame. But I wanted to talk to you guys about The Isle of Emberdark. It is one of the most interesting reads by Brandon Sanderson because it feels both modern, but it also feels kind of not vintage, but dated. And when I say dated, I'm talking like Sixth of the Dusk or Dusk. He is like a trapper on an island, so it feels a little bit more country vibes, less developed, and yet that is just the feeling of the world that he lives in. So let's dive into the summary and then we'll try to make sense of it. From #1 New York Times bestselling author Brandon Sanderson comes a legendary standalone novel that navigates the seas and the stars of a far future Cosmere, illustrated by Esther Hailani Kendari. All his life, Sixth of the Dusk has been a traditional trapper of aviar, the supernatural birds his people bond with on the deadly island of Patchy. Then, one fateful night, he propels his people into a race to modernize before they can be conquered by the ones above, invaders from the stars who want to exploit the aviar. But it's a race they're losing, and Dusk fears his people will lose themselves in the effort. When a chance comes to sail into the expanse of the Emberdark beyond a mystical portal, Dusk sets off to find his people's salvation, only with a canoe, his birds, and all the grit and canniness of a patchy trapper. Elsewhere in the Emberdark is a young dragon chained in human form, Starling of the starship Dynamic. She and her ragtag crew of exiles are deep in debt and on the brink of losing their freedom. So, when she finds an ancient map to a hidden portal between the Emberdark and the physical realm, she seizes the chance at a lucrative discovery. These unlikely allies might just be the solution to each other's crises. In their search for independence, Dusk and Starling face perilous bargains, poisonous politics, and the destructive echoes of a dead god. Sanderson expands his thrilling novella, Sixth of the Dusk, into a mythic novel of legends, lore, and warring galactic superpowers. So, this is an expansion of a story here within the Arcanum Unbound. And so I wanted to kind of flip it open and show you guys, like, part of the cover art is kind of laying out how the Cosmere looks in Brandon Sanderson's mind. There's the Scar, there's Threnodon, Scadrial, Roshar, First of the Sun, Nothus, Cell. And so I know some of you are like, what does that mean? Well, the great thing about the Arcanum Unbound is on its contents page, sorry, that's my pen, it actually breaks it down by the stories that happen on various parts of this, like on various parts of these aspects of the Cosmere. So the Hope of Elantris happens in the same system as the Emperor's Soul. Whereas in the Scadrian system, we get most of the Mistborn books. Where in the Threnodite system, we get Shadows for Silence in the Forest of Hell. The Dromonad system is Sixth of the Dusk, and so that's the one we are focusing on now. Now, the Rosharan system, of course, is going to have Edge Dancer as well as Dawnshard, but it doesn't list Dawnshard in here because I don't think it was written at the time that this was also created. So Six of the Dusk is a book in this big old book. So if you go looking for it, you can find it. But it does have a page that says the Dromonad system, and it tells you just a little bit about it. Like there's a whole page about the Dromonad system, just to kind of line it out for you. And then there's Six of the Dusk. So that's where you're going to get the novella for Six of the Dusk. And I think that's really cool that that's how they do it, because what Brandon Sanderson does in then The Isle of Emberdark is he actually takes this short story and helps expand it out for us. He actually includes this short story in the novel in order to kind of help you build, because it is imperative that a person read this short story to understand the rest of the book, which is why he went ahead and wove it into the narrative of The Isle of Emberdark. It is, let's see, I was just going to see how many pages it was, but it's not very long, in fact. I'm just seeing, no, it's not that long. It's from 472 or something. Anyway, y'all don't really care, except it's not that long. It's like that many pages. So, gosh, that's not even, I wouldn't say it's about 60 pages worth. But this particular page on this right here is a really good depiction of Dusk with his bird on his shoulder, sock, and then what he sees with Sock on his shoulder. So the bird is actually showing him himself deceased in various ways, because the Isle of Patchy is incredibly treacherous. So that's one of the things that Sock, his bird, is able to convey to him or kind of bestow upon him. Is Sock is precognitive only in the fact that she can kind of show him, if you step here, you'll die. If you step here, you'll die. If you do this, you'll die. And so what he sees is a whole bunch of his body in various places, whether it's in a puddle or strangled by a branch or what have you. And that would be terrifying to me, to see that, just be walking along, bird on my shoulder, and then boom, there my own body is laid at my feet. So he is very good at understanding that when she shows him like his death, so to speak, that he's then able to take measures in order to prevent that from happening. So that's one of those benefits of having an AVR. Sock is an AVR. And so she has a type of investiture that is a fairly common word in the Cosmere, but a type of investiture, a type of power that seems to allow her to bestow this upon Dusk. So she's able to share that with him, and so that's why he and Sock are so incredibly close. Now, going back to Emberdark, it is approximately 465 pages. I do not know if my leather-bound edition is that long, but I assume it's somewhere around that. And it says it was first published July 1st of 2025. I want to say that's about the time that I received it. So, not 100% certain if it was released to the public in that respect, but it also looks like, yeah, I was going to say there's another link for the Isle of Emberdark, but it says that it's actually releasing in 2026. So I'm not certain, I'm not 100% certain if it's already available for public or if I just got the advanced reader copy pretty much. But I did back it, so maybe it's as a backer edition. It is high fantasy, epic fantasy, dragons, fiction, fantasy, and a little bit of sci-fi as well. Now, some of the most interesting parts about this book, which I thought were fantastic, was we do take this planet, or this land, this realm called Patchy, and it feels a little dated, but I think it's because we are seeing it from the perspective of Dusk. And so he's really used to kind of roughing it. Well, he encounters someone who then they kind of build out society here on Patchy. And so it's not something that he really wanted. He knows how dangerous Patchy is. He's constantly trying to tell them, hey, all these plants can kill you. I don't know, these animals can also kill you. Patchy's very, very dangerous. Well, the civilization is going pretty well, but then ones from above come down and really start trying to figure out the secrets of this world. And those end up being the Scadrians. And now the Scadrians are trying to, I guess, more or less get their hands on these AVR. They would like to have their own AVR, which seem to, be these mythical birds. Well, the thing is you can't have AVR. I don't know if you can take them off world, but I know that you can't, like, they can't. I was gonna say you can't bring a AVR to Patchy, but I feel like that is a fine line to walk. Let's just say how frequently that works is very few and far between. And if you read it, you'll understand why. But going back, Dusk seems to realize that the Scadrians really kind of have them in a bit of a chokehold, and that they're going to get what they want, kind of hell or high water. So Dusk sets out in a canoe floating on this particular substance that's not really like water, but almost what I would call like thick air. And he has to coat the bottom of his canoe with this worm paste, like this glowing worm paste, in order for it to stay afloat. And he seems to have to do this, like, kind of worm paste stuff pretty frequently in order to ensure he stays afloat. So one of the things that kind of gave me a bit of pause, and I definitely think I need another, like, go through just to fully understand the concepts, because Brandon Sanderson is very creative with his magic. I've seen chalk magic, metal magic. Now we have bird magic. We have so many different kinds of magic. And I don't understand personally, because I maybe somewhere in the audiobook version of it, I glossed over it. And that's completely valid, completely rational thing to think. So he sets out in his canoe, floating through this Emberdark, and he encounters, and to the best of my description, a group of individuals on or from a spaceship in the Emberdark. Now, this is where we meet Starling. Well, we've met her a little bit kind of as they've talked about what she's been doing on the side before her and Dusk kind of meet up. But Starling she is a dragon trapped in human form due to some things, like she's kind of more or less being punished. And she accidentally kind of makes a crew mutiny. Now, okay, so it's a starship, but I'm starting to also wonder, is it a ship-shaped starship? Like, is it more like Treasure Planet, where it's kind of flying through space sort of thing? Like, I can't quite figure that out. But it's because, like, we're in the Emberdark. There's some references to Shadesmar. It feels kind of like similar on Roshar. Shadesmar is like glass beads and stuff, where water is land and land is water once it kind of switches over. Well, that's all I can imagine. So that's where I'm saying that maybe I need a second listen to with this book, because that was the part that didn't make a ton of sense to me, but still really good. And so anyway, they join forces, and oh yeah, I was telling you guys about Starling and her accidental mutiny. Well, she wanted to rescue some people. The captain didn't want to rescue people, so she like locked the captain out of the bridge, made the decisions, and now she's like, okay, well, I'm sorry, I just really needed to like rescue these people. And she's like, no, you don't, like the Captain Crow, she was like, no, you don't understand. Like, the crew will never respect me anymore. I'm not the captain anymore. And Starling's like, oh crap. Well, they have to go back to kind of the owner of the boat and let him know, hey, our bad, we did dump your cargo, but we have heard about this potential perpendicularity, which is more or less like, I picture it like a Stargate. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't look like that, but in my head, like that's how I've just kind of made it look. But in my head, I make it look like a Stargate. And she's like, well, I think we have an idea that like there's an unknown Stargate and we have this map and supposedly it's real. And he's like, okay, well, if you can't do this, if you can't show me that there's a perpendicularity, possibly, then, you will work for me for X amount of time. However, if you do show it to me, if you can prove that it exists, then I'll let you go. So Dusk is trying to save his people, and Starling is kind of more or less trying to save her crew from a life of servitude. So they're both working out of kind of love for others more than anything. And I really so this particular person, Eve Star 91, just wrote a little comment, and she said, his brief hunting stint inspired by Hemingway's Old Man of the Sea is something to look out for. And that does make sense because he, and I only say that because I was reading it and I was like, okay. So Dusk is out and about, sailing the Emberdark in his canoe. And there's no real land for him to land on. There's no real water for him to have. He has to kind of distill it from other things. And pretty much he kind of uses like this, I think it's like fish blood, if I'm remembering correctly. But he's able to distill it from that. And there's a point where he fights one of these fish or one of these creatures, Emberdark creatures. What does he call it? A skullhead snake? Something like that. But anyway, and I kind of felt like it was an echo of something, but now that I see it's a reference or inspired by Hemingway's Old Man of the Sea, that does make a lot of sense for me. But going back to Starling, that one feels more like, so this particular person does actually say perspective with Firefly vibes. And that's what it does feel like. It feels kind of like this group of ragtag individuals who are kind of cobbled together. They're trying to trust each other and they don't quite know each other, so they're working together to try to make it happen. But then Dusk feels a little bit more like this loner who has a hard time working with people, a little more antiquated in his ways and his beliefs, but the way it comes together really works. I had a great time with this book. Now, it is not one of my favorites within the Brandon Sanderson world, but I thought it was one of the more interesting because it did seem to merge so many different things together that I wasn't expecting. It kind of has this adventurer mindset, but it also has this like sci-fi mindset as well. And so those are just my thoughts on that particular thing. I'm not going to try to tell you guys anymore. Clearly you can see that both this book, The Arcanum Unbound, is thick and has lots to read if you want to read any short stories from the, well, not any, but if you want to read some of the short stories from the Cosmere. And then you can also go out and get The Isle of Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson as well. I assume that it's available for like public purchase, but if it's not, then I'm so sorry. I'm still going to give you guys this review and let you guys wait on pins and needles to see if it's something that you are interested in. Now, one quick thing, my personal thought, I like the Reckoner series. I like the superheroes that where any power kind of corrupts over a period of time. And the Reckoner series is probably one of my more favorites. So I don't know, but you're welcome to leave a comment down below and let me know if you've read any Brandon Sanderson book and what might be your favorite. But I do still plan on, I think I was going to try to do Wind and Truth, but I was going to try to break it down into like quarters or something. Still haven't fully decided on that. That thing is so big, and I know there's a lot of A lot of people have thoughts on that book, but it's a girthy boy. But with all of that being said, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. If you haven't liked and subscribed already, I hope you will consider it. And I will see you all on the next page. Have a great one. Bye.